All my friends bullied me into making a full-on trip video rather than just usual clips like I have been doing in the past. So here's my video for a trip I'm doing to go to Florida for a paintball event, and then up to Ohio to shoot an engagement shoot, then off to Milwaukee to visit my grandma since I'm in the area, and headed back home to San Diego. My first night on the road is always going to be shooting some form of a star trail, so here I am at Vital Junction shooting what used to be the shoe tree and is now, I guess, the shoe gas station. I don't know if I got lucky the night before and didn't notice the clouds, but man, I had a pretty decent sunset getting up the next morning. So I was off to my first real stop of the trip, Petrified National Forest, to try and get a new national park pass, and I figured since I was there, might as well shoot a little time lapse. Since I've done this trip a few times, I've pretty much done most of the sightseeing that I want to do along the road here. So it was just a lot of freeway driving until I got to my next main stopping point, which is a usual stop for me. I always seem to make this stop when I'm on the 40, and that's Tucumcari, New Mexico. The whole reason I stop here is to get pets from the dogs at the TP Curios little roadside attraction, but they were closed. What was open was next door, seemed to be the new thing on Route 66, and that's the good old marijuana dispensaries. My mom says Texas has the best rest areas, and I gotta agree. Why is it that you always seem to have a decent sunset at your hotel and not when you're at Scenic Vista or something like that? Next on the national park site chopping block was Vicksburg National Military Park, another site that I've been to, but I was just coming here to get a stamp for my new passport book. It's definitely a neat battlefield park with a lot of big monuments to check out. Once I made my way down to the 10, it was very evident that they still had a lot of damage left over from the storms that they had down there. It really makes you want to say thank you to all the folks out there right after the storms that are repairing the lines and doing everything it takes to get back into business. Just got to my hotel for the night. We are in Gainesville, Florida now. Right before the event, going tomorrow. Gonna check in and do all that. But now that we're in here, I'm gonna go to the restaurant because there's a hotel restaurant. Now that dinner's done and out of the way, we are gonna take our drink and head back to the room and charge everything up and make sure we're ready for the event. Now that we're at the venue, we're going to go ahead and walk the field, check everything out, and then go check in. And the next few minutes are what an average event looks like for most of us media guys. Definitely wouldn't be paintball without a little bit of rain.
Please save us. We need food and water.
So you don't need anything? No. Don't forget, you got to go back to the Airbnb, dump all your cards, and edit some content for the Instagrams. Once the event's over, you have a little drink to remind you of home. World Cup is done, time to pack up the Mini. Shout out to Wrangle at Under Industries for the custom 1904 bag. My first stop after the event was Fort Matanzas. I've actually been here a handful of times, probably 4 or 5, but I've never actually been to the fort because every time I come there's damage from hurricanes, either at the fort or the port or the boat dock or whatever, and they're just not doing tours. So this is what I get every time. This is the closest you can get without actually taking the tour. Another night, another hotel working, editing photos. By far my favorite visitor center. So cool. Retro styling and everything like that. The folks who won the event were thinking about buying some photos of the celebration and podiums, so I had to go through and edit up some of their photos so that they could look at a gallery. So here I am working on the road. Since I was passing through Tennessee, I needed to make sure I stopped by to visit a fellow Findlay Hats fan and bourbon aficionado to grab some drinks and food.
Welcome back to Tennessee.
Another thing I try to do when I'm in the area is always tour a new bourbon distillery. So here's Woodford Reserve with a buddy of mine.
The brand's not 20 years old, but we created Woodford Reserve in 1896.
Yeah, it just always settles down, so it's cooler over there.
About Woodford Reserve anywhere in the world, they come from distribution and ship to 170 countries.
Plans changed and now I gotta go to Grandma's before I go to Ohio. So I'm gonna stop off real quick at Pullman National Historic Park and check out some train stuff, because you know, trains. I've actually been here once before, but it was before they made the historic park status, and it was definitely nothing like this. The only two things I care about doing with my grandma when I'm visiting is pretty much just hanging out, and then there's also the food. I didn't realize Wisconsin was that serious about their fish fries. Cheese curds. Cheese curds are always great, but the fish fries are some serious business in Wisconsin, along with the old fashions. Weird. But a Sham tort, oh my god, this thing's good. I do have to laugh because I did watch the Jake Paul fight with my grandma and aunt. Well, the photo shoot in Ohio canceled, so I'm done at Grandma's and I'm just gonna start heading west. My first stop headed west is Herbert Hoover's National Historic Site. It's basically the birthplace of the man who created Hoovervilles. Sometimes I try to find a local restaurant to eat at, but then there's also the times where I'm dead beat tired from driving and just want to dump photos and eat a pizza from Pizza Hut. This is one of those nights. This hotel in Garden City, Kansas has to be the sketchiest thing I've ever stayed at. That is what was holding up the walkway for the second floor. Oh my god. They also checked me into a dirty room. It was crazy. I definitely need a drink if I'm going to be staying there tonight. The rain was actually getting kind of bad for a little bit at one point. Even I got stuck behind a Love's truck. That's never a really big complaint. But the road was closed. They were forcing people to turn around, and I ended up having to drive through some dirt road that actually was more muddy than dirt. And it was fun. Thank God I had all-wheel drive. I always love running into little connections with home, like in this case, this football helmet from San Diego State. This is one of the newest national park sites. It's actually only a few months old. This was one of the sites I came to just for a stamp. I've already been here. It's really cold. I definitely didn't do my research, as the visitor center isn't open today. They're running under winter hours. I wonder why. Do your research before you come to national parks. All right, now that we're cleaned up, let's see what they got for breakfast. So I'm back at Capulin Volcano. This is probably one of my favorite interactions I've ever had at any of the national park sites. I was here one time and I held the door for a lady at Fort Union and then happened to run into her again here. And I just love when you just keep running into the same people at different national park sites. But the cool thing is she showed me her passport book, and I had the classic usual one you buy from the bookstore, but she had one that was more like a journal, and I thought it was really cool. So once I filled my book up, I had to copy her, and I should have done it from the get-go when I saw hers, because now I'm like 4 or 5 years behind on all my stamps. But I'm going back through and getting all my stamps. That's why I'm here, to get a stamp in the new big book. After Capulin Volcano, my next stop was going to be Fort Union National Monument. In the end, I'm just basically rolling along the Santa Fe Trail. It's actually pretty cool because there is one point where you actually see the old ruts and remnants of the Santa Fe Trail. Does anyone know what the deal with these junker trains are? It's like one dude buys 3 junkers and then just tows the rest with whichever one is the best running one. I don't get it. A lot of the sites I visited on this trip I've already been to, so I wasn't really trying to do any major visiting. I was just trying to come by and get my passport stamp and maybe do a time lapse or something like this. I was definitely excited to be back in California, but I had to make one more stop before I went home. I had to stop in Joshua Tree to get my passport stamp from there. Been here a bunch of times, so I was really just going to the visitor center. And that's it. Trip's over. Time to unpack the Mini and start working on the rest of the photos.